Hey, how's it going? This is Kevin from Audio Digital, back here in 2020. Happy New Year. And it's time to get some music done. So in this episode, we're going to talk about wavetable synthesis in Bitwig. And in 3.1, there was a new feature added that makes the workflow of using wavetables a lot more easy, a lot more simple. And I had a video in the past where I talked about how to use wavetables in Bitwig. And I'm going to kind of update that with the new feature, how to use the new feature. And I'm going to talk about beyond Wavetable, what you can do in Bitwig, especially in the grid that you can't do in other wavetable synthesizers. So let's just get into that. So here we are in the grid. Now you can import wavetables into the regular sampler device, but there's a couple of reasons why you might want to go ahead and just use the grid. Number one, it's there, so why not use it? Number two, it's going to give you better fidelity. And number three, it's going to allow you options that you can't do in the regular sampler. The disadvantage would be probably higher CPU usage. So if you just want a nice simple setup, you might want to go ahead and just use the regular sampler. But let's go into how we can use this. So I'm going to just bring in the sampler module. And having this sampler module in the grid is just ridiculously powerful. You can do so much with it. And we'll get into a little bit of the things we can accomplish here. But next, you're going to need some wavetables. And Bitwig doesn't come with any, or at least not that I found. So what you're going to want to do is get some, you can get some free off the internet. If you have something like Serum, you can use those wavetables and just bring them in. I went on the internet to this particular website, Semantics here, and they had some free Serum wavetables. You can use anything that's compatible with Serum will be compatible in Bitwig. So anywhere you see on the internet where you can get some wavetables that are compatible with Serum, you can get those. So I got these for free. They wanted my email address. Seemed pretty legit. I haven't gotten a bunch of spam so far. So the wavetables are good quality. So I'll try to remember to put the link in the description for these guys. So once I have those, I can just come in. They're right here in my library, but you're going to want to right click here and add them to add the content location to your browser. And it's going to show up under my library. I made a folder called Wavetable to have some different wavetables here. So we can use these guys. And once you're in the sampler, you can just click here and go to your wavetable, click on whichever library you want. And now I can just click on something and it'll instantly load up and it's going to be usable. But you're going to have to set up the module here in the right settings. So what we want to do to pretty much emulate normal wavetable behavior is to go into cycles mode, turn on the freeze function here. Then this is going to be like your wave index dial. And then you have a format dial here to make things sound interesting. So and then so really easy. And you can come in here and just scroll through different wavetables and see what they sound like. And, let me move this down a bit so I can kind of get an idea of what's what here. So just scroll through and see what I want. So that workflow right there, that's the new feature that you can just scroll through and the wavetables are going to work so long as you're in cycles mode. And you don't have to be in freeze mode, but that's going to be the way that you can kind of do what maybe you're familiar with from other packages. Right, so now we have our library of wavetables. We can go through them really easily. So now what else can we do with this? Now, a lot of dedicated wavetable synthesizers allow you to modulate things in several different ways. Like Serum, you can do all kinds of wave shaping and on and on. So how can you do that in the grid here? Well, you have format, which is nice. But what if you want some other features? If you want to do some amplitude modulation, what you can do, I'm just going to leave a little room here, is to get the amplitude modulation module here. And then we can just get an oscillator. Let's just use a sine oscillator and then plug that into this guy. And now we have AM. And of course, we can modulate or change the frequency here to get different results. So not only can we do AM, but we can use basically any kind of waveform we want. We can even replace this with a sampler and do the same sort of wavetable search. And it takes me right to where I was in the other one, which is pretty great. Okay, that, and remember we need to go to cycles, and probably we want to do. So now we're scanning and changing the waveform of the AM with another wavetable. So that's something that generally you can't do in most other wavetable synthesizers. I'm going to go ahead and change this wavetable to something else. Let's try this one. I want something a little, let's go with that one. Now, a really fun thing that we can do is to use an oscillator. I'm going to plug in an oscillator here. Let's start with a sawtooth. And with this oscillator, I'm going to actually use it to phase modulate and then route that into the envelope and so forth, right? And I'm just going to put in a mixer so we can bypass this as well, right? And we're just going to solo this guy. So that's just the oscillator by itself. Now I'm going to modulate it. So that's phase modulation coming in. And this, here's an A-B comparison. So you get a lot more edge running it through this sawtooth oscillator here. And of course we can still and change this, knock it down. So instantly we're getting a lot more edge, a lot more kind of guts to the sound by routing it through this oscillator. So this is basically doing kind of wave shaping, but it's also doing phase modulation at the same time. If I just want to do some wave shaping, what I can do is turn this to 0, and this basically turns off the kind of playback driver of this oscillator, and then the phase modulation input is the only thing driving the oscillator. And in this way, we can just use this as a wave shaper. And I can replace it, like let's say sine. And in this way, we're doing wave shaping, sort of editing of the output of the wavetable that you would find in a lot of the packages that like Serum and so forth. But we're getting more possibilities here. We're able to do a lot more with this sort of wave shaping. I can also start to use the phase tools here and get some interesting results. Like let's use the mirror. And so we can just plug it out from here and then plug that into the phase modulator. And mirror is one of the things that you can do in Serum and some other sort of systems, but we're not really limited to just using mirror. I can chain as many different effects as I want into here, and get endless awesome results that are super edgy, but still clean as long as you don't, press it too hard. Endless modulation here, endless wave shaping and editing of the sound. So this is the sort of thing you can do in the grid, and what makes it maybe one of the best workshops for wavetable synthesis. Now, outside of all that, we can also do phase modulation directly on the wavetable. And let me show you what that's like. Let's just go back to the raw output here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this one for now and just give ourselves a nice basic oscillator. Actually, I'm going to use a triangle. And what I'm going to do is take the output of this triangle, I'm going to attenuate it here and then put a modulator on the end so I can modulate whatever I want with the output of this guy. And then I'm going to modulate the position here. So we're going to switch to repitch mode. And then I'm going to control the playhead with an oscillator. And this is basically what phase modulation is. It's basically using something to control the playhead. Now, as soon as I just did that, if I start to play, you can see we're already getting a result here where I can modulate the intensity by, if I put it all the way down to 0, then we get no output. But so not only can I change the dynamic of the sound by changing the amplitude of this oscillator, but I can also scan at the same time. Scanning sounds a little bit weird for reasons I won't go into here, but you can certainly tune the sound to your desire by just moving this through the wavetable, whatever you choose. And again, of course, we can go in here and try the same thing with a bunch of different wavetables and see if it sounds any good to us. Let me go to FM. Let's try some growls. This one looks interesting. Now this will work with basically any sort of waveform you put in here. It'll work with, let's just throw whatever in here. Let's throw this in. Now, if you're dealing with a long sample, you want to kind of zoom in on it so that it's not going to scan across so much of the sample. It'll sound pretty crazy if you do that. And even smaller than that, let's say. So you can basically use anything, and this technique will give you some interesting results. So here we have a nice kind of simple waveform, and with something like this, it's safer to do a larger range of modulation. So I'm going to just crank it up here to, yeah, this looks good. I could probably put it somewhere around here. So again, we can take the output of this, run it through all this kind of stuff again, and get some crazy. Add a lot more edge to it so far. Really endless possibilities here are available. So one other point I wanted to mention is that unlike a lot of these other modules, the sampler module will pretty much operate in mono, kind of. You can put stereo samples in it and that would be in stereo. But other than that, it can't kind of be, the outputs can't be split the way they can with the oscillators. So one way to get around that is that if I'm routing things through one of these sort of oscillators, I can just turn on the offset here and start getting stereo. Now, if I don't want to use the output of one of these oscillators like that, I can also use the voice stacking to get stereo. And to do that, of course, I want to use the voice stacking kind of modulator here, come to the output and split that out into left and right. And then I need to do some sort of variance. Now, if I'm using this particular technique where I'm phase modulating this waveform, the pitch doesn't really have any effect. So that's not really going to give a stereo, but I can change the pitch of the actual oscillator that I'm using to modulate. And that will give me some stereo. I don't want to do that. So that's how you need to get stereo. Either use voice stacking or use an oscillator at the output. There's other methods too, but you can't really get this module to be stereo output. So of course you can get pretty much any sort of timbre you can imagine using this set of techniques. And it's, once you kind of get used to how it works, it's really not very hard to think of. So just to recap, we have the ability to import wavetables pretty much. I mean, there's so many out there that you can get even for free, or you can use ones that come with a wavetable synthesizer you already have. We can use the wavetables to amplitude modulate other wavetables, or we can just use oscillators to amplitude modulate. We can come in and do a bunch of phase modulation tricks here and get all kinds of results by routing the output of our sampler through an oscillator. And then we can also do some phase modulation directly on a wavetable, or basically on any sample we want, to get some really interesting timbres. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful new year of productivity with your music. And thanks again for watching. Bye.